today we will find the solution for the rotating disk problem. So we have seen that suppose there is a disk that is spinning with some angular velocity omega, then the body force we have seen is rho times dr is equal to rho r omega square. So this I think I have discussed previously, and then the rho times b theta is equal to 0. So this is of course after things have reached to a steady state. So we are going to find the solution only for the steady state. So that means, so as I said, that in the beginning there will be an oscillation of this disk. Right? There will be a u theta component of the displacement even in the rotating frame of reference. But after a certain amount of time, because of the internal damping within the material, it will reach to some steady state. Okay, and so we are talking now of this steady state solution. So basically we can treat it as a statics problem now, because it has reached to a steady state in the with respect to the rotating frame of reference. Okay, so this whatever body force that I am writing is in the rotating frame of reference, and corresponding to this, that potential that we talked about. So this V is equal to half of rho r square omega square. So that is because, so we can see that rho times dr is equal to del v by del r is equal to rho r omega square, which is the same as this body force that we are writing, and then rho times b theta is equal to del v by r del theta is equal to 0. So that is exactly the body force. So this is the potential corresponding to the body force, and we will use this now in the Airy stress formulation to get the solution for this spinning disk problem under plane stress conditions. Okay, so imagine that this disk is thin enough and that it is rotating, so that plane stress condition, so that the plane stress approximation can be made, and now we are trying to find the solution under that approximation. So we will take the, so we have derived the Airy stress function, right? So this is an axisymmetric problem, right? So because the only the UR component is non-zero and it depends only on R. There is no dependence on theta in this particular problem. And so this is so for this particular case we have derived the Airy stress function in the last class. So that was A times log R plus A times log R plus B times R square log R plus C R square plus B plus 1 minus nu by 32 times rho R to the 4 times omega square. So I have already substituted this expression for V in order to get this particular Airy stress function. Then once we know the Airy stress function, then we can derive the stresses from this particular thing. So you will get that tau Rr is equal to 1 by R del P by del R minus V, and that is equal to A by R square plus B times 1 plus 2 log R plus 2C minus 3 plus nu divided by 8 rho R square omega square. So this is the tau RR component. Then tau theta theta is equal to del square V by del R square minus V. So that is equal to minus A by R square plus B times 3 plus 2 log R plus 2C minus 1 plus 3 nu divided by 8 times rho R square omega square. Okay, that is the and then u theta is 0. So that I mean that is the axisymmetric nature of this deformation here. And now from this we will find out what are the strain components, and then we will use the strain displacement relation in order to find out what the displacements are. Okay. And we need to consider the displacement because we will see that some of these constants can be determined only by considering the displacement. So that we will see. So we have to first find out the entire solution, and then we have to find out what the constants are corresponding to this particular problem here. So del u r by del r is equal to epsilon r. So that is equal to 1 by e times tau r minus mu times tau theta theta. So because we are assuming plane stress, the tau z component is 0. So this is equal to 1 by t of 1 plus mu times a by r square plus 1 minus 3 mu times b plus 2 into 1 minus mu times b log r plus 2 into 1 minus mu times c minus 3 minus 3 mu square divided by 8 times rho r square omega square. So similarly, let us find out what is u r by r. So that is epsilon theta theta. That is equal to 1 by e times tau theta theta minus mu times tau r, and that is equal to 1 by e times minus of 1 plus mu times a by r square plus 3 minus mu times b plus 2 into 1 minus mu times b log r plus 2 into 1 minus mu times c minus 1 minus mu square by 8 rho r square omega square. Okay, so this is the expression. Okay, so the brackets need to be completed here. Okay, so yes, so this is the expression for as epsilon r and epsilon theta, and then from this now we can directly find out what is u r, because just multiply this whole thing by r and then you will get what is u r. So let us write that. So you will get that u r is equal to 1 by e of minus 1 plus mu times a by r plus 3 minus mu times br plus 2 into 1 minus mu times br log r plus 2 into 1 minus mu times cr minus 1 minus mu square by 8 rho r cube omega square. Okay, so this is the expression for u r. Okay, now the solution for this spinning disk problem depends on whether we are solving the solid disk problem or a hollow disk problem. So by solid disk we mean that this whole disk is solid. Otherwise, hollow disk we can think of a hole here. So that is so this outer radius is let us say some b and the inner radius is a. So we can think of these two scenarios. So first, let us just solve the solid disk problem. So that means there is no inside disk here. So there is no hole within this particular disk. And let us say that the radius of this disk is b. Okay. So for the solid disk now, solid disk. See, we have to set a equal to 0 and b equal to 0. So the reason is as follows. So you can see that the if you try to evaluate this at r equal to 0, correct? So this at the center of the disk, if you try to evaluate this particular expression, then this blows up, correct? And so your a has to be equal to 0. See, otherwise your displacements will be unbounded, and that is physically unacceptable. Right? So A has to be 0, and then similarly, if you look at the expression for epsilon RR, right, at R equal to 0, right? So this is so you can see that your epsilon RR is also blowing up at R equal to 0, correct? And that is also unacceptable. So because of these two reasons, we need that A should be 0 and B should be 0. So this is UR and epsilon RR should be bounded, right? Should be bounded at R equal to 0. Okay, so this is the reason why we need A to be 0 and B equal to 0. Okay, then we can find out what the stresses are for this particular case. So you will now get tau RR is equal to 2c minus 3 plus mu divided by 8 of rho omega square r square, and tau theta theta is equal to 2c minus 1 plus 3 mu divided by 8, so this is 8 of rho omega square r square, and so we now impose the traction free boundary condition on the surface R is equal to B. Correct? So you can see that for this particular geometry, what are your tractions, right? So dr d theta will be equal to tau RR tau r theta, right? Because your unit normal n r and theta is equal to 1, 0. So if you substitute that in the relation t is equal to tau n, so this is obtained from t is equal to tau n, then you will see that tr is equal to tau r and d theta is equal to tau r theta. Now tau r theta is already 0 because it's an axisymmetric problem. So if you find out tau r theta, that is already 0. So only the boundary condition for tau r has to be imposed. So that means there is no traction that is being applied on the outer surface. So tau r at r equal to b has to be equal to 0. Right? So tau r at r equal to b is equal to 0. So this will imply that c is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 16 of rho omega square b square. So this is the expression for c, and c is the only unknown constant, and so we have found out. Now once we find out c, then the entire solution is known here, right? So let us look at the expressions that we get now. So if I substitute this expression for c in the expression for tau r, then this is what we'll get. Let's write that here. So we will get that tau RR is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 times rho times omega square times b square minus r square, and tau theta theta is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 rho omega square b square minus 1 plus 3 mu divided by 8 rho omega square r square, and so at the center of the disk, so at the center, you'll get that tau r is equal to tau theta theta is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 of rho omega square times b square. So this is also a characteristic that whenever you have an axisymmetric problem, right, at the center the tau r and the tau theta theta will be the same. That is because, see, suppose how is the ER and the E theta defined, right? So if you go at some slight distance, right? So this is your ER and this is your E theta, right? So this is at theta. But if you now bring this point to the center, then this theta itself becomes ambiguous, correct? And so in that particular case, at least in axisymmetric problems, you will see that tau r will be equal to tau theta theta because the theta itself becomes ambiguous at that particular point. So you can imagine that any theta, right? So you can imagine that basically the results have to be valid for all theta, and so you will get that whatever is happening in the ER direction, the same thing will happen in the E theta direction also, and so that is the reason that because the theta becomes ambiguous at the center, so you will get this particular thing. But this happens only in axisymmetric problems, but you can see that result that you get here. And then what about UR now? So the displacement here, so this is UR, let us write that. So UR is equal to rho omega square times b cube divided by 8 times e into 1 minus nu times 3 plus nu times r divided by b minus 1 plus nu times r cube divided by b cube. So this is the expression for the displacement, and the maximum displacement obviously occurs at the outside boundary r equal to b, because you can imagine that actually the centrifugal force is trying to pull this apart, right? And so obviously at the center the displacement will be 0, and then as you move away the displacement keeps increasing until it is a maximum at r equal to b. So you get that UR max is equal to UR at r equal to b, and so that is equal to rho omega square times b cube divided by 4e times 1 minus mu. So this is the maximum displacement at the boundary level. Fine. Then, so this is the solution that you get for the solid disk. Now let us take a case of a hollow disk, right? So now let us take the case of a hollow disk. So now you get that the inside radius is A, and let's call it as the outside radius is B for this particular case. Okay, so now let us look at what is the solution that we get. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we need that circular hole at the center, circular hole at the center. So now, since we have u theta is equal to 0, right? Still the problem is axisymmetric, and so u theta is 0. So this will give me that b is equal to 0. So that you can go back to the expression for u theta, and from that we will see that u theta will not be 0 unless b is equal to 0. And then now we need to determine the remaining constant. So in this particular case, that constant a that we have is not going to be 0. Okay, and so there are two boundary conditions now that we have to satisfy. That is tau r at r equal to a is equal to tau r at r equal to b is equal to 0. So same, just exactly in the same manner. So the traction in this direction is tau r, traction in this direction is tau r, and so tau r has to be 0 because this is stress free, right? There is no traction that is being applied on this rotating disk. on the inside surface also, and so this is what you will get here. And then you can now find out what the constants are. So you have to find now the constants A and C in this particular case. Okay, and then what you will get is that now R is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 times rho omega square times b square plus a square minus a square b square divided by r square minus r square. And then tau theta theta is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 of rho omega square times b square plus a square b square by r square minus 1 plus 3 mu divided by 3 plus mu times r square. Times r square. So this is the expression that you will get. And the maximum tau r in this case, so you will see that the maximum tau r occurs at r is equal to under root of AB. So you have to differentiate this and then set it to 0, and then you will get that the maximum occurs at this one. And then the value is, so tau r maximum is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 8 times rho omega square times b minus a square. So you can see that actually now you can see from these results that things are not at all intuitive, correct? So we cannot predict that where the maximum stress will occur and so on unless we do this detailed mathematical analysis. See this value at which the maximum tau r occurs is not at all intuitive, correct? So intuition cannot tell us that the maximum radial stress is going to occur at r equal to root AB. So we have to go through a very detailed mathematical analysis in order to predict where the maximum stress is occurring here. Okay. And what about tau theta theta max? So tau theta theta max. So this is equal to tau theta theta at r equal to a, tau theta theta at r equal to a, and so this is equal to 3 plus mu divided by 4 times rho omega square times b square plus 1 minus mu divided by 3 plus mu times a square, and this is greater than tau r max. Okay. So the maximum tau theta theta occurs along this edge here. Right? So this is the so if you draw an element like this, then this is your tau theta theta, right? So this is your tau theta theta. Okay. So that is the maximum occurs along that particular boundary, along that inside edge, and that maximum value that you get is greater than tau r max in this particular case here. One thing to note is that many times even books sometimes write is that if you take the limit as a tends to 0, you will get that solution. Now I somehow don't agree with that, because no matter how small your hole is, right? So even if you shrink the hole to a very small size, let us imagine, even then also you can see that the boundary condition still is tau r equal to 0 at r equal to a, right? No matter how small you make the hole, correct? And so that boundary condition is going to be different than that for a solid disk, because there the tau r is not going to be 0, correct? Tau r, tau theta theta are not 0 at the center. So many times actually we do get the solution for the solid disk just by taking the limit as a tends to 0, but I think that is just by luck. I mean, in the sense that, as I said, the boundary condition for a, no matter even if a is very small, boundary condition at that edge is different than the boundary condition here, right? And so, as I said, that it may just be a matter of luck sometimes. But so what I'm trying to get at is that you should not take the limit as a tends to 0 of the hollow disk to get the solution for the solid disk. So these two should be solved independently of each other to get the solutions there. Okay, so let us move to the next problem here. So yes. Yes, so let us look at now the thick walled cylinder. So this is also a very, very important problem, and this is something that is often discussed even in strength of materials books. So some of you may be familiar with this problem also. So typically in the strength of materials course, one looks at the solution for a pressurized circular cylinder under the assumption that the thickness of that circular cylinder is small. Okay, so here we are going to talk about a thick walled cylinder here. So this is so thick walled means that we are not making any assumption about the thickness. Okay, so as I said, that in your strength of materials you are making certain approximation that the stress is uniformly distributed across the build and so on and so forth to get some approximate solution. But now we are talking the exact solution for this thick walled cylinder here. So, so you imagine that there is a inside the so this is a cylinder with the inside radius A and the outside radius is B, and then there is some pressure that is being applied. So this is like a pressurized cylinder. This is PI. Let us call this inside pressure is PI, and you can imagine that there is an external pressure also that is applied. So that is P naught, PO for outside, PI for inside, PO for P outside. And then again, so I'm not going to go through the same solution because we have already seen the spinning disk. So you simply set that V to be 0 because now there is no body force associated with that. And so we can use that same solution. So again, since u theta should be single value, it should be 0 in this particular case, and then that will give me that P is equal to 0. So the same reasoning as we use for the spinning disk problem we can use in this particular case. And so again, the constant A and C have to be determined, right? So so in this particular case, tau r is equal to A by r square plus 2c, and tau theta theta is equal to minus A by r square plus 2c. So in the previous case, the stresses were generated by the body forces, correct? Because the centrifugal body force is what was generating the stresses. Now those body forces are 0. So we are setting that V part, whatever was there in the earlier problem, that we are now setting to 0. But now here the stresses are being generated by the pressure that is being applied on the inside and the outside surfaces here. So now we have that the boundary conditions are that tau r at r equal to A is equal to minus Pi, and tau r at r equal to B is equal to minus P naught. So this is again same thing. So I am using that T is equal to, so TR, T theta, again in this particular case is tau r theta, and then the pressure is compressive, so that is why the minus sign, minus Pi and minus P naught here. So those are the boundary conditions, and then from these boundary conditions you will get that A is equal to A square B square divided by, so this is P naught minus Pi divided by B square minus A square and 2c is equal to pi a square minus p naught b square divided by b square minus a square. So just you can easily solve for these two constants. Okay, but now what about the displacement, right? So for the displacement we need so we have to be very careful about how we handle the displacement. So see, the thing to remember is that u theta is equal to 0 for all theta. Okay, so for all theta. So this is very, very important, right? So you can take theta equal to 0, theta equal to pi by 4, pi by 2. You can make various choices for theta, and then you will see that all the constants such as k is equal to h is equal to 0. So these are the constants that I had written in the last class. Okay, so you have to go back to the notes for the last class where I had given you the expression for u theta in terms of these constants k and h. So these k and h have to turn out to be 0, and also f is also 0. Also, so f is also equal to 0. So these are the constants that turn out to be 0, and then finally from all of this you will get that u theta is equal to 0. So as I said, that the reasoning is that u theta is 0 for all theta, and then from this so by making various choices for theta like 0, pi by 2, 3 pi by 2 or whatever, you will get these that it should be equal to 0 here, right? Sorry, and this one is actually because as I said that this is just from symmetry, axis symmetry. So here we are using the arbitrariness of the theta, and here we are using the axis symmetric nature of the u theta, and so from that we will get this equal to 0. So from this, what you will get as the expression for ur now is as follows. So ur is equal to 1 by e times minus of 1 plus mu times a by r plus 2c times 1 minus mu times r, and epsilon theta theta. So u theta is 0, of course. U theta is equal to 0, and then epsilon theta theta is equal to ur by r. So that is not equal to 0. So here, and this is something you should not make a mistake here, that even though u theta is 0, epsilon theta theta is not 0, right? So you can imagine, see that. So suppose if you imagine a circle like this, right? And then once you apply the pressure on the inside, so let's take the outside pressure as 0. Suppose if you apply pressure on the inside, then this dotted circle, right, that will go to some so it will increase, right? The radius of that circle will increase, right? So the initially if it was 2 pi r, so suppose this radius is r. So 2 pi r now goes to 2 pi r plus ur, correct? So now the displacement has got added to that, and so you can see that there is a change in length, right, for the fibers that are running along that particular circle. And so even though u theta is 0, epsilon theta theta is not 0. Similarly, tau theta theta is also not 0. So this is something that one should not make a mistake in this particular aspect here. Fine. Then okay, so now let us look at just some special cases of this particular solution here. So one nice thing that you can see from this solution is that tau r plus tau theta theta is equal to a constant, right, throughout the thickness of the cylinder. So throughout. So this is a very nice property. So what we are saying is that individually tau r depends on r, tau theta theta depends on r, but tau r plus tau theta theta is a constant. Correct? That is something you can just add the two expressions and then see that. then if we take P naught to be 0, so imagine that the pressure is applied only on the inside, so outside pressure is 0, then what are the expressions that we get? So P naught is equal to 0, then you will get that tau RR is equal to A square Pi divided by B square minus A square times 1 minus B square by R square, and tau theta theta is equal to A square Pi divided by B square minus A square times 1 plus B square by R square. So this is the expression that you get in this particular case here. Okay, and then what you can see here is that your tau RR is less than 0. So this is less than 0. So the stresses are compressive. This is a compressive stress, and this tau theta theta is greater than 0. So this is a tensile stress. This is tensile. Okay, and then let us find out what is tau theta theta max. For this case, so tau theta theta maximum. So this occurs at R equal to A. Tau theta theta at R equal to A. So this is equal to Pi into B square plus A square divided by B square minus A square, and you can see that that is greater than Pi. Okay, so this is the sort of non-intuitive aspect of this whole thing here, that actually you are applying only a pressure of Pi, right? But the stress that is generated, right, along this fiber here, that is this tau theta theta, can be several times greater than Pi. Right? That, of course, that depends on the dimensions. So you can imagine that suppose it's a thin walled shell, right? Then this B square minus A square is going to be very small, correct? And then this term is going to be large compared to this one. So you can see that you can get even 10 times of Pi, right, as a stress. So even though you are applying only a pressure of Pi, but the tau theta theta can be 10 times of that one. So that is what I keep repeating, that these things are not very intuitive, correct? And only when we do this detailed analysis using the theory of elasticity can we come to know about these things, right? So obviously failure can now occur along this inside fiber here, right? Suppose if there is a small crack, then it will just propagate, because this is a very high stress concentration region, right? So that can be seen from these particular expressions here. Yes, so and then let us see. So this tau theta theta is the greatest. Right? So this tau theta theta at R equal to A is the numerically greatest stress. Numerically greatest stress. So what that means is that this stress is the maximum in terms of magnitude. This is the maximum. So that means even the maximum tau RR is less than this particular value here. So this is the absolute maximum. So if you compare the magnitudes of the stress, all the stress components throughout the domain, then this is the maximum stress that you get on this one. Okay, then the last thing is this thin. So let us now look at the approximation for a thin tube here. So what do we get in that particular case here? So yes, so yes, and so let us see. So actually this result is for all AB. This is valid for all A. So anyway, So now for a thin tube, so for thin tube, now what you have, so you can write now B as A plus T. Okay, so now let me just redraw that. You can imagine that this is your A now, this is A, and now it's a thin tube. So this, I'm just drawing it, this, and now this is your T. Right? And so B is now A plus T. Right? So that T is the thickness of the tube. And we also have that T by A is much smaller than 1. Correct? So that is what we mean by a thin tube here. And then from this, what you will get, so if I now substitute this B as A plus T, and we will try to make this approximation here. So we will get that now theta theta is equal to A square P I. So this is, so again we are now considering only the case where the pressure is applied only on the inside, not on the outside. So this basically we are applying this PI as the pressure inside this particular PI. So this is A square PI divided by 2AT plus T square. So this is after simplification. This is what you get, plus A plus T square divided by R square. And so now let us try to simplify this particular expression by using this approximation. So what you will get, so this is equal to A Pi times A divided by T plus order T by A square. So T by A square. So you can see that these terms are going to be very small because we are considering that this thickness is much smaller compared to the radius A. And so this, if you see this particular expression, this is exactly the expression for the hoop stress that you have seen in your strength of materials courses, right? So see there, if you recall, the way we derived it is by taking the free body diagram, right? So what we did is we took the free body diagram of this one like this, okay? And then we said that this is your tau theta theta, this is your, so this is your tau theta theta, and there is a pressure that is acting on this one here. So right, this is the pressure PI that is acting, and then we said that the force, the downward force due to the tau theta theta is balanced by the upward force, right, due to the pressure, correct? And this upward force is nothing but the pressure times the projected area, correct? And that is just Pi times 2A times the thickness, correct? And then that is balanced by tau theta theta times the thickness, right, and times the width into the board, but that you can just take it to be unity. So you will finally end up with this particular expression, right? But there, if you recall, the assumption is that we are assuming, so because it is thin wall, we are assuming that tau theta theta is a constant across this particular width. So that is the strength of materials assumption that we are making, which is actually not true, correct? So that is what we saw. That suppose if you, that's why we said thick wall. So because now this is a thick wall, actually there is a variation of the tau theta theta. So as we saw that it is maximum here, and then it goes to some lower value on the outside edge here, in the case of an internally pressurized cylinder here, right? So there is some variation of the stress. It is not just a constant, right? And but whereas in the strength of materials approximation, we are simply assuming it to be a constant. But that you can see that now from the exact solution, we have got back that particular approximation here. So because we are now neglecting these terms of order T by A square. And then the tau RR you will get as approximately 0. Right? Tau RR is approximately 0. So that is also something that that is an approximation that we make even in the strength of materials solution there, right? So so you can see that so to summarize this, what we have done is that we have found the exact solution now under plane stress condition for the pressurized cylinder, What we have seen is that there is a variation of the stress across the domain, right? Only the tau r plus tau theta theta is a constant, but individually tau r is inversely proportional to r square, and tau theta theta is also inversely proportional to r square, right? We got a by r square plus 2c, tau theta theta was minus a by r square plus 2c. And then what we saw is that if you take the thickness of this cylinder to be small, then we get back the strength of materials approximation that you have seen, correct? So this is the pi a by t, that is the hoop stress. So we recovered that as an approximation if we neglect the t by a square. But of course, so the thing is that if your thickness is not small, right, then your strength of materials approximation is no longer valid, right? And so because now you cannot neglect these particular terms, and then you have to go back to the exact solution. So now you will see the value of the exact solution, right? That you can see that the strength of material solution that was derived has a very limited applicability, right? I mean, it is valid only when the thickness of the cylinder is small. The moment the thickness of the cylinder increases to a reasonable value, then that solution breaks down. Okay? Whereas this solution, whatever we have derived, is valid for no matter what the thickness is, and no matter what the inner radius is, no matter what the outer radius is, because it's an exact solution. Okay. So anyway, I think we will stop here.